So, for anyone who's watched any of our videos for any period of time will know, one thing about my gaming back catalogue is that I really enjoy a good horror game. There are so many amazing ones out there, from the well-known Silent Hill and Resident Evil games, though the latter has gone away from that more into action games than horror now, to the more niche Crooked Man and other indie games. This is not one of those. I'm going to say sorry from the start that I did not enjoy what little I played of this game, and in the end, it was only the demo. Yes, we were given a code to play the game, but upon redemption it only gave the demo. Seems a little bit strange, but here we are. Still, after replaying it a couple of times, I feel comfortable in saying that this game will not be one that I will actually be playing in full. So let's get into the story to start off with. Now, this is something that I did actually really like the sound of. You play as a scientist whose father worked on some mysterious time travel project who's gone missing. You wake up having been kidnapped and need to find your way out and what's going on. As you make your way through the strange environment, you only know that you need to survive so that you can get back to your wife and daughter. The notes dotted around give you the story of a machine being built by some other mad scientist who has linked its control to his own bloodline so that only he can use it. The bad guy, TM, seriously, I'm not sure who's really the bad guy here, the scientist or the guy who's just generally being evil, has finally figured out that this is the way to get the machine to work, and so has kidnapped you and your family to use their safety to get you to retrieve some items from the past so that he can complete his evil plan. With a bit more fleshing out and things like that, it would have been a really great idea. However, you can see that this is kind of just a way to give you several different time periods and to be hunted down by different monsters and killers, which would be fine. It's been done many times before, but I don't know, it just feels a little flat here when you're introduced at the end of the demo. If you don't stop or pick up those notes, and sometimes you just can't because you're being chased, you aren't going to have much of an idea of what's going on, which is fine. Silent Hill does this a lot too, but it does allow you to kind of figure things out from what's being said and what's going on in the environment. This doesn't really have that as an option. There are, of course, different people chasing you throughout different time periods, as I've said before, and from the trailer they seem to be some very fun character designs that I would love to learn more about, but in the demo there is only some twisted people that look like something out of Outlast, which is a pretty good segue into the gameplay. It is very similar to Outlast, in first person, and you have to avoid the enemies. You can't fight them, they're no weapons, and after all, you are just a normal person with no combat training. Why would you suddenly be subject to head-on collisions and able to fight with A-grade style? I just don't know. In retrospect, this should have been the first thing that we knew was wrong with James Sunderland in Silent Hill 2, but that's not the point of this video. I'm aware I keep going back to Silent Hill. No. Our protagonist can run, jump, hide and climb to escape and find items that are required for him to survive. Mostly the controls are simple and work mostly well together, but the main issue that I had is everything which isn't running or jumping is controlled by the same button, E. The issue with this is everything but jump being controlled by the E button is that sometimes I forgot that the jump button wasn't the E button and died several times in the most frustrating ways. I'm not sure if the simplistic controls helped or hindered, but it was a bit of a curve as I'm so used to pressing different buttons for different things. So overall, I've not got much to say about this other than it was pretty easy to adapt to very quickly. There is the typical thing in this game that most players seem to hate, which I've got no problem with, which is the yellow markings. If you ever get lost and can't figure out things, there will be a yellow marker or paint to be able to help you locate things, items, routes, all that kind of thing. I really understand why some people hate being handheld, but it's never really bothered me. As someone who gets lost regularly, it's pretty useful and was especially useful in this demo. You see, I did run into some really bad bugs on this game. If you die in a certain spot, which is in the air vents in the demo, when you respawn, you can't move, you can't get out, you can't do anything, and you're just bugged there and have to reload to an earlier save point. It was really frustrating and annoying, so sometimes looking for those yellow markings gives you an alternative route, which honestly was a godsend. It meant that I could actually continue, but I had to make sure not to die before getting into an auto spot save point. Otherwise, I would be back there and get killed again, and it would just go on and on and on in a terrible cycle. When you pick up an item that's part of a puzzle, they will have a purple glow, and it really, really stands out. This was an interesting take, and it did make things very jarring when I was walking across a balcony and there was suddenly a bright purple statue that I had no idea what to do things with yet. I understand why it's there to help people figure things out, but certain things are pretty obvious from a gaming standpoint. While playing this game, I needed to pause to get a delivery in. After all, I'm a gamer and we are regularly known for never actually going out to get our own shopping. It's not the case, I do a weekly shop like everybody else, but you know, let's stick with the theme, shall we? And I pressed the menu button. This did not stop the enemies from killing me, which is fine. I just thought the menu button was the pause button. Which, again, frustrated, soft lock, annoyed, previous mentioned bug, all involved, very, very annoying, frustrating. I know I've used those words a lot, but it really was. I know some people have problems with this kind of thing, but it's an accessibility issue, which is something that is really important and something that I don't think a lot of people understand. At any point, you can join the disabled community in your life. I was perfectly healthy up until the age of 26. Then I started having blackouts and seizures randomly. I now suffer from a chronic illness, but I randomly joined the disabled community. That could happen to you too. So having these things worked into gaming is really important because, again, anyone can join this particular community. Not to mention, there's the fact that parents that have kids and other personal issues, a pause button's a really simple thing. I know, I understand. It's a small ask, but it's an accessibility option that makes things just massively improved. Now, I'm going to get into the final part of this review, the level designs. The demo starts off in a crazy nightmare walking sim, which honestly really piqued my interest and got me wanting to play. Sadly, there isn't a lot of this through the rest of the demo. It feels like a little bit of a disconnect from the rest of the gameplay. Actual horrors and jump scares and creepiness and voices. It was really great and I really enjoyed it. And then it moved into a prison/dungeon area, very reminiscent of Amnesia: The Dark Descent. These cramped corridors and creepy atmosphere worked really well here. But once you've stepped out into the more open and expansive mansion areas, I didn't like this part at all. There was a small puzzle section, which was great to introduce some of the puzzle mechanisms of the game. However, this area felt way too big, just full of random assets placed in random areas just to make it look busy. It just made the whole thing feel so very empty. I feel this game's strength really works where it's more closed in corridors and tighter environments. Being hunted is a lot scarier when they can follow you quickly and you can't just run to the other side of the room where they can no longer see you because it's so big. I think there needs to be a bit more set dressing that actually has kind of themes and positioning and things like that. So yes, you've got puzzles in areas. How does the furniture work with the puzzles? And then how would the rest of the furniture be positioned to make it actually look like a lived-in space? Not just, I need to fill this large space with a load of crap to make it look lived in. I'm aware that some art collectors and things like that may live like that, which is fine. But again, you need to show us or tell us in some way that there is an artist living here, which is not the case. Collectibles would be a really good thing as well, though they may be in the main game and just not in the demo. Finally, and for me, there is a blatant and egregious use of AI on the loading screens. As I said, I'm an artist, and some may argue that I'm not a very good one, and I'm genuinely against the kind of generative AI for this thing. You are making a video game. You could quite easily have taken a shot of your own work, run it through some filters on Photoshop, or even just get a smaller artist wanting their own start on the industry a go. It's frustrating to see someone use their creativity to make a game that could be good with a lot more polish, but using generative AI that is so blatantly obvious, it screams at you that it's generative AI. at least edit it to make it look smoother, make the lighting make sense, stop having things just look weird, not in a creepy way, but just in a this isn't a real building kind of way. It annoyed the hell out of me more than anything else. I could even complain about the voice acting, but I know how hard it is to get into the industry and how you can actually get better by just doing the readings and practicing the readings and all that kind of thing. I used to be terrible when I first started YouTube on the script writing and reading it and all that kind of thing. I'm always going and what do I say and all that kind of, I still do it now, but I'm a lot better than I was. Voice acting is something that you can get into and you can grow in, and it's kind of got a cheesy charm to it as well, because it reminds me of the original wooden delivery of the fun and campy original acting of the early gaming periods, late 90s, early 2000s, where things were really starting to pick up. But that loading screen, especially after the amazing entry where you started off in the horror nightmares, just really threw me out of the game. It's a personal point, but this is a review of what I played, so I'd be a bit of remiss if I didn't actually tell you how I felt about the whole thing. Anyway, that's all I have to say. As I've said before several times, I feel at least a little bad because this is based on the demo, but I've continually tried to load the full game with the code given, but it just says demo, demo, demo. So we were asked to review what we were asked to review, and this is what we were given, so that's what the review you get.